Hyundai has just launched a new powertrain option for the 2025 Hyundai Santa Fe. It's a 2.5 turbo petrol. You might be familiar with it. It's available in the Sonata N line in Australia, and it was available in some Genesis models. I think it still is available in some Genesis models. 206 kilowatts, 422 Newton meters, matched to an 8-speed dual clutch automatic. You can get it in all-wheel drive and front-wheel drive. Kind of replaces the old petrol V6, which you could only get in front-wheel drive in Australia. So this just, diversifies the range, gives you a nice big variety. On the outside, it looks identical to the existing hybrid options. Here we're testing the top spec Calligraphy in all-wheel drive trim. I think you can only get all-wheel drive with the Calligraphy anyway. I really like the design of this new model. I think it looks really cool and retro. And it's got that kind of rugged old Land Rover Discovery kind of theme to it, with upright windows, very boxy and square. The only part that I don't like, or I just can't seem to get used to, are these tail lights. They're just mounted too far down. They need to be mounted just here somewhere to make it look more proportionate and neat, because you've got this big blank panel just here. It just doesn't sit right in my brain, you know, after looking at so many thousands of vehicles over the years. As you may have heard me explain before, the reason for the low-mounted taillights is because Hyundai wanted a big tailgate and a big opening boot section here. So this mouth is actually really big, this aperture into the boot. And what that means is you need massive gas struts to lift up the tailgate. And these can't be mounted any lower, because if the taillight was there, the gas strut would have to be smaller and they wouldn't be big enough to lift the big tailgate. So it's kind of a, not just design, but a practical influence that has put the taillights down there. In terms of the boot space here, it's a little bit bigger than the hybrid just because of the electrical components and so on, but not by much. It's about 20 litres or something like that in 5-seat layout and 7-seat layout. I'll flash up the exact specs now so you can see the difference, but it's not much. The boot is pretty big compared with others in this segment, but you know, it's not the biggest in the class, especially with the third row up. You don't have much left over. You know, a lot of people and media are complaining about the latest Prado, which doesn't look like it has that much, but you know, this isn't that much better. Again, check out the specs. I think the Prado maxes out at just under 1900 litres, whereas this is about 1950, I think, at max. So with both rear rows folded down. So it's not that much difference, but yeah, that's not the biggest in the class. I've seen over 2000 litres with both rear rows down in some models. But overall, you've got decent amount of leg room in the back there. I mean, it's not the top of the class, but it's okay. Most rivals don't offer the absolute comfort anyway. It's more for kids, but you do have some semi-climate control there, USB-C charging port on both sides, and more than enough cup holders, and a 12-volt socket in the back there too. You do have plenty of hooks and tie-down points so you can stop your things from flying all over the place. In the cabin here, I'm not a huge fan of this particular trim color. It's kind of like a browny green. It does look unique though and futuristic, and it contrasts well with this matte white finish. But yeah, you've got other options you can select from. Excellent practicality. You've got a reclining rear seat as well as slide adjustment as well, so you can adjust how much leg room you want in either row. It's definitely one of the most practical crossover style SUVs on the market today. As I said though, the boot space and the third row seat isn't the biggest, but it's still, at least average for the class standards. You've got adjustment points for the front seat from the back here. You've got a little hidden USB-C port there. You can access the center console box from the back. Pop out map pockets in the backs of the front seats and a sliding drawer. It's actually pretty big. You could store, whatever in there. And then in the front, it's all about practicality blended with modern luxury. Like, it looks really cool, but it's, very practical. You've got shelving for the passenger side. You've got a sanitizer tray you can turn on just here, and you've got twin wireless phone chargers, cup holders, some under console storage, and a really good driving position. I've got excellent visibility all out the front, and even out the back is very good because of that vertical tailgate and a big rear windscreen. So it's just, very easy and practical to drive. And that upright cabin orientation means you've got plenty of room. Like, look at my head, it's nowhere near the ceiling there. The first thing you want to do when driving the latest Santa Fe is turn off all of these so-called driver assist features. So I've got the lane keep assist turned off, which is easy to do. You just push this button on the steering wheel and hold it down. Little symbol on the dashboard there glows orange. I've also got the driver monitoring camera turned off. and I've turned off the speed sign recognition and information and warning and all of that. You can actually leave the information on, so it will show you what speed limit it thinks it is, but it does get it wrong a fair bit, like most vehicles. So I just turn it off completely and just use my brain and just try to concentrate on driving instead. But yeah, you can turn the driver monitoring camera off. Oh, sorry, every time you reset the vehicle, all this stuff comes back on as per the latest regulations. What I've been doing is put tape over the camera here, which seems to sort of slow down the process, and you know, it's not as annoying, I guess. But what happens is it will throw up a message saying camera is, you know, not clear, or camera view not clear, or something like that, about 1 or 2 times during each drive session. So if you get in the vehicle, take it for a drive, it might flash up a warning once, and then that's it. You don't have to worry about it. Whereas if you leave everything turned on, then it'll automatically, or it can automatically turn back on by itself if it thinks you're being distracted. So if you start fiddling with the radio stations or have a conversation with the passenger, it will likely turn everything back on, which is really annoying. As for the 2.5 turbo petrol, I think it's a nice engine. It's a good replacement to the V6 petrol as well, because although that was a nice sounding engine and it had decent power, it's just a bit peaky for a vehicle like this, as in you have to rev it out to achieve what you want to achieve, whereas this, it's got a lot of low down torque and more torque than the V6 anyway. So yeah, you just lean on the throttle and it starts to push you along. You can feel it pushing you in the back with not much effort. It doesn't sound as good as the V6. I'll just slow down and give you the full throttle experience. I'll put it into sport mode just in case. I don't think there's any artificial sound or anything coming through in sport mode. Full throttle. Yeah, it just sounds like a pretty typical turbocharged modern engine. It's quiet, it's refined, doesn't have any pops or bangs or anything like that, because it's not really a performance engine per se. I mean, it is in the Sonata N line, but yeah, this is not a performance, it's not marketed as a performance option. The 8-speed dual clutch automatic is a really nice dual clutch automatic. It's probably one of the best out there. Whereas the hybrid uses a conventional 6-speed automatic. I think it is smoother with that gearbox and that hybrid setup, because the electric motor just really smooths out the gear changes and fills any gaps in torque, whereas this definitely has the sort of stepped ratios, or yeah, they're more evident stepped ratios. But as I said, it's a great gearbox. You've got paddle shifters as well, so you can play around if you want to. Very quick shifts. Doesn't blip the throttle or anything like that, but again, it's not a performance option. In terms of fuel economy, I'm averaging 12.1 litres per 100, but that was with, or it included performance testing. Quite a hot day as well, 30 degrees. I think you could get it down a little bit lower than that. The official rating is around 9.3 compared with 5.6 in the hybrid. So you're definitely more likely to get lower fuel economy in the real world in the hybrid, for sure. In terms of the handling, this is a little bit lighter than the hybrid, but it's about 70 kilos or 80 kilograms. It's not a huge difference, and that's not enough to, you know, make a big difference from behind the wheel. I mean, you'd have to drive them back to back to really feel the difference. I guess the other main thing is the weight distribution and where the extra weight is added. That might make a little bit of a difference to the handling, but overall, from what I can tell, I mean, the last time I drove a hybrid was a few months ago. It feels pretty much the same. It might feel a tiny bit lighter, a little bit more responsive perhaps over bumps especially, whereas the hybrid model, like, it will just be a tiny bit delayed when you're edging over bumps and making corrections to the steering. I'm talking very minute levels though. I don't think it's something worth writing down as a benefit, you know. I think its handles pretty much the same, and in saying that, it's quite a nice handling vehicle. The latest Santa Fe, even though it's a over 2-ton vehicle, it actually handles really well. It feels rigid and stiff. The steering it's pretty numb in sort of Hyundai fashion, but I've got an understanding of what's happening with the tires. I think it's a nice handling package for this style of vehicle. You know, this is not a sports SUV. This is a practical run around family hauling machine. I'm keen to see what this does across 0 to 100 compared with the hybrid. So what I'm going to do is show you some video footage of the Calligraphy hybrid all-wheel drive up against this model. I didn't record a virtual drag race, which would have been better, but I just didn't think about it at the time. So what I'll do is just match up the speedos so you can see the difference in performance, and then show you the results at the end. So both Calligraphy, both all-wheel drive. In the near future though, I'm going to book in a base model 2.5 turbo and test the front-wheel drive version of this, so basically the lightest version of this, and see what that can do as well. Alright, let's head out now to the performance test and see what it goes like.